Black Friday event has concluded in Dinosaur Simulator, and they added a new egg called the Retro Egg in this next update. So this will be permanently available, so you don't have to worry about it going limited. And there is a total of 9 retro skins, as you can see here. These of course are based off of the retro depictions of each dino. You can see I have the pity system for this as well. There is a green rarity, the retro dolly, but it also does say I need to unlock everything else before I have a chance at getting the dolly. Let's do 10 eggs. Let's try to see how much we get. Okay, so here are our 10 eggs. Yeah, we didn't really get anything good. We got a bunch of iguanodons and triceratops. We got a T-Rex, which is probably the best thing we got, the orange rarity. Let's actually do 5 more. Maybe we'll get lucky. And we did not get lucky. We got a bunch of these. You can see we are building up our pity points. We have 375. I actually want to test this. If I can get to like 500, could I just buy one of these? Let's do 10 more again. I know this is a big waste of DNA. I don't recommend. Okay, jeez, man. We got all of the worst rarity here. Okay, so how many points are we? 625. Okay, that's more than enough to buy one of these. Which one do we want? The Retro Mosa or the Retro Apato? Let's go for the Retro Mosa. Yeah, there we go. We used our pity points and we got this guy. That's how the system's gonna work. We still have 100 left, so we could actually buy the Retro Therizino as well. And now we're just missing the Apato and the Dolly. Alright, so here we have the Retro Triceratops, and this is probably the most common drop on the Retro Eggs. I just realized that 14 extra copies, so if you want one, DM me on Discord, and I'll give you one. But yeah, here's the idle animation. You can tell they made it choppy on purpose to emulate the stop motion style. Here is the walk animation. Same deal here, they made it really choppy on purpose. And here we have the run animation. Now let's hear the sound effects, starting with the roar. I can't tell, is that a new sound effect? Now the call. One more time. And finally the growl. Now let's check the attacks. So this is the basic attack. It does like a bite and a horn jab. And it looks like that's it. Okay, next the AoE. Okay, so it does like a stomp move. Now let's check the E animations. And it does not have a unique E animation for when I'm eating a tree, it looks like. And now for the drink. Finally the swim. This is the idle swim and the swim forward. Yeah, it only has one swim animation. So interestingly, the rest pose is smooth unlike any of the other animations. You can see when I'm standing and then I go down to rest, it's a smooth transition, it's not choppy. But during the rest animation itself, if you look at the tail right here, the motion is still choppy. Next up we have the Retro Iguanodon skin, which looks like this. Just like the trike, it has the stop motion style animation going on. The design of the Iguanodon actually looks really different from how modern Iguanodon looks. So this is a pretty interesting model. Here is the walk animation. Here is the sprint animation. It feels weird because the movement is smooth, but the animations are not. Now let's hear the sound effects, starting with the roar. One more time. Yeah, I think these are definitely custom sounds. That was the call, and now the growl. Now let's check the attack animations. So we got a bite, head swipe. Looks like it's got maybe 2 to 3 attack animations. It's got 2 variations of the head swipe. Now the AoE. it kind of does a kick with its back legs. Now the eat animation. So it sort of bends down and then starts chewing. This guy does have a unique eat animation for eating trees, I think. Yep, it rears up on its hind legs. And now the drink. Okay, now we're at the swim. The idle swim and the swim forward, I think, has the same animation. But when I sprint, it actually gets smoother, it feels like. The animation is played faster. Now for the rest pose. So it lies down on its side. And its eyes are closed. Okay, so here we have the retro Stegosaurus skin. This actually looks pretty similar to what Stego actually looked like. It's just minor differences, like the neck being too thick here and the tail being held down like this. And just like all the retro skins, it's got the stop motion style animations going on. Here is the walk animation. And here is the sprint animation. I really do like this sprint animation because of the way the arms and legs move. Now let's check the sound effects, starting with the roar. Let's hear that again, hold on. You hear a little bit of static at the end. It's probably a reference to the old TVs that the retro movies with these dinos would be displayed in. Now the call. One more time. It also sounds kind of muffled, which might be the point because of the poor speakers on those TVs. And now finally the growl. Oh wait, it actually sticks its tongue out. I didn't see that. Yeah, that's part of the growl, I guess. Now let's check the attack animations. So there's a bite, and then followed by a tongue flick, it looks like. Then a tail swipe. Head swipe. Has 3 different attack animations, I think. It's not really doing the tail swipe that often, I don't know why. There we go. See, I always wondered, are these attack animations all equal in chance? Or are like some attack animations just more rare? Because it's doing the head movement way more than the tail swipe. Like, there's no way these are equal chance animations. Now let's check the AoE. So the AoE, it kind of flicks its tail forward. Now the E animation. And this guy does not have a unique E animation, it looks like. Now the drink. And here is the swim. Just like all the other dinos, it only has one swim animation, which looks like this. Finally, the rest pose. Okay, so it lays down like this, moves its tail occasionally, and that's about it for the rest pose. Alright, here we have the retro Megalosaurus, and you might be saying there is no Megalosaurus in this game, and you'd be right. So they gave the Megalosaurus skin to Torvosaurus instead, and here's what the idle animation looks like. Not too much going on. It does open its mouth occasionally. It's got blinking animations as well. Okay, wait, actually it's starting to do something. Here is the walk animation. And here's the run. Okay, I do really like the run animation. Looks like it's galloping, but in stop motion, of course. Now let's hear the sound effects, starting with the roar. One more time. Next up is the call animation. Okay, I really do like that call. It rears up on its hind legs there. Finally, the growl. One more time. And now let's check the attack animations. So this is the normal attack. Looks like it's doing like a bite. Oh, this is part of the idle. It does like a head bash. Then it has a bite too, yeah. Now the AoE. Okay, I do like the AoE. It has like the old Megavore V3 AoE where it like stands up on its hind legs and then slaps you with its arm. Alright, now let's check the E animation. Sort of just bites down. Now the drink. Here is the swim animation. And finally the rest pose. Alright, next we have the Retro T-Rex. This is probably one of the more iconic retro skins because of the upright posture and the head shape. Not too much going on in the idle as of now though. Here's the walk animation. And here is the run. Interestingly, it kind of hunches over during the run like a real T-Rex would. Now let's hear the sound effects, starting with the roar. That sounded almost like a jaguar or like a big cat or something. Now the call. That too sounds like a big cat, like a cheetah or something. Finally the growl. One more time. I guess they just gave the Retro Rex cat-like sound effects. Now let's check the attack animations. So it does that. Looks like a head bash. Is that the only attack animation it has? Maybe it has like two different versions. This is part of the idle again. Yeah. Alright, now the AoE. Okay, I do like the AoE. It props itself up with the tail and does like a kangaroo kick. Now let's check the E animation. It looks like it uses its arms for the E animation, like it's grabbing onto something. And I also noticed it has 3 fingers on its hands, instead of 2 like T-Rex actually did. Here is the drink animation. Next up we have the swim animation, which looks like this. Yeah, I don't think in those retro movies they showed T-Rex swimming, so they really had to come up with this on their own. Okay, so the rest pose, it just lays down on its side. From this perspective, you can't really tell it's retro actually, because you can't see how it's supposed to stand. Except for the head shape, I guess, which is a bit different. Alright, next up we have the Retro Therizinosaurus. Now this is a really interesting one because it looks nothing like Therizinosaurus does today. It looks more like a turtle with really long claws, which I guess is what they thought Therizino looks like back in the day. Okay, now let's check the walk animations, which really just looks like a turtle walking. And here is the sprint. Now let's check the sound effects, starting with the roar. Now for the call. Finally, the growl. So yeah, this guy actually has some pretty aggressive sound effects for a turtle, or I guess what they assumed to be a turtle. Since they thought Therizino was a turtle, it's only right that they thought it could swim, right? I don't think this guy actually can swim, since this is the swim animation. I guess they thought Therizino was like a terrestrial turtle, or sort of like a tortoise, even though the design here looks more in line with like a sea turtle. Now let's check the attack animations. So there's like a bite, and then it swipes at you with the claws. Here's the AoE. Okay, let's see it again. So that's pretty interesting. It like rears up and then swipes at you with both claws. Now let's check the E animation. So I guess they also thought Therizino was a herbivore back then. Or maybe they just didn't change it in Dinosaur Simulator. Now for the drink. Yeah, this animation looks pretty similar to the eat, actually. And finally, the rest pose. So just lays down flat. Eyes are fully closed. Alright, here we have the Retro mosasaurus, and you can see it kind of flicked its tongue out right there. But yeah, the model itself doesn't look that far off of mosasaurus. Like, this looks like a heavily stylized Mosa in some kind of video game, like maybe like Hungry Shark Evolution, something like that. Here is the swim forward. Primarily only the tail moves, not so much the flippers. And here is the sprint swim. Mouth is open during the sprint swim. Now let's check the sound effects, but I'm gonna go above the water so we can hear it more clearly. Here is the roar. Alright, let's hear that again. Now for the call. I think it's trying to do the idle animations, but I'm above the water, so it's canceling it. But this is part of the idle. Now the growl. Now let's check the attacks. So just like a head swipe. I think that's its only attack animation. Unless there's like a really rare attack animation that's just not showing. Oh, it does a bite too. I guess that was the rare attack animation. Seriously though, someone who knows, comment below why some attack animations are just like 10 times more rare than others. Now the AoE. Okay, that was pretty cool. So it does like a 360. Followed by a bite. Now let's check out its land animations. So here's the idle on land, which looks fairly normal. Here's the walk on land. And the sprint on land, which I think is the same animation as the walk, just a bit faster. Alright, now we're going to move on to the E animations. Now let's check the rest pose. Okay, so it kind of just does the aquatic rest, where it closes its eyes, and it's like floating still. Here's also a part of the idle. I think it was trying to do that earlier, but it was just getting cancelled all the time. Alright, next up we have the Retro Apatosaurus, which has the same color scheme as the normal Apato. This is part of the idle animation you just saw there. Here is the walk animation, and the sprint animation. Now let's hear the sound effects, starting with the roar. One more time. It's got a bit of static at the end there, which I think is intentional. That was the call animation, and it reared up on its hind legs there. And now for the growl. One more time. Yeah, the sound effects on this Retro Apatosaurus are pretty good. Now let's see the attack animations. So we got like a neck swipe, a tail swipe, and I think that might be it for attack animations. Oh, it does a bite too, so it's got 3 different attack animations. Now for the AoE. Nice, so it does the sauropod stomp followed by a tail whip. Now for the E animation. I'm clicking on this bush right now, but it seems to extend its neck during the eat. Now if we eat this tree... Okay, no, it does have a unique E animation where it rears up. Alright, now for the drink. And here's the swim. So the swim, it kind of sticks its neck above the water. The way it's shaped kind of reminds me of the Loch Ness Monster, where it had like the bump on its back. The neck would be extended like this. Finally, the rest pose. So it lays down on its stomach, tail curled in, eyes seem to be closed. Alright, next up we have the Retro Dolly Megalosaurus. This, of course, is not a real dinosaur. So I'm not sure what they based the retro design off of. I'm assuming this is probably inspired by some of the different dinos in Dolly's DNA, or maybe just prehistoric amphibians. Well, yeah, here's what the idle swim looks like. Kind of just floats there. And now here is the swim forward animation, as well as the sprint swim. So yeah, the design looks a lot like a frog and less like a hybrid dinosaur, I guess. Here's the swim down and the swim up. Okay, that's pretty interesting. The swim down and the swim up actually look significantly different. The swim up, the tongue even sticks out. Now for the land animations. So here's the idle on land. It kind of just sits there. The walk on land looks like this. Kind of flicks its tongue. Here's the sprint, which is much like a frog, but then it runs on its hind legs for a bit. Alright, now let's hear its sound effects, starting with the roar. One more time. Now the call. Finally, the growl. Yeah, I'm really curious as to what the inspiration for these sound effects are, because it doesn't sound anything like an amphibian. And the design kind of looks like a crocodile's head on a frog. Now let's check the attack animations. It's got a bite and head swipe. That might be about it for the attack animations. Okay, now the AoE. So it kind of flicks its tongue and then bites down at the same time. And the AoE underwater looks the exact same. Now for the E animation. This guy is an omnivore. So here's what it looks like eating a bush. And I'm guessing it has the same animation while eating fish as well. Yeah, it does. And finally, for the rest pose. This guy can only rest underwater, by the way. The legs are weirdly extended during the rest pose. I think that's about it. Alright, that's every single retro skin so far. This will be a permanently buyable egg, so there's no need to rush. You can take as long as you need to obtain all these eggs, and there's a pity system, so in case you don't, you could always just buy it with points. I think the models for this egg look really good, although I will say I'm not a big fan of the choppy stop motion style animation. I know it's intentional to feel like the old TV shows with the retro dinos, but I feel like it would have been cool if only a few of the dinos had it, because I think some of these retro models were never in the old shows and were just sketches in books. But I will say the sound design for all of these models are amazing, and I think this series is well worth it. Comment down below your thoughts of the retro skins and whether or not you will be spending your DNA on it. And that's about it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.